Hello and welcome back to the NWR Virtual Healthcare Conference. My name's Matt Wright. Next up today, we have Vittorio Puppo, the COO of RADIOPHARM Theranostics, listed under the ticker RAD. RADIOPHARM Theranostics is focused on the development of radiopharmaceutical products for diagnostic and therapeutic uses in areas of high unmet medical need. Before we hear from Vittorio, a reminder for anyone in the audience that if you have a question, please type it in using the Q&A panel within Zoom. I'll hand it over to you, Vittorio. Please go ahead.
Matt, thank you. Thanks for having us, and nice being here. I'm going to talk about, the company RADIOPHARM Theranostics and give an update on our portfolio. This is the aimer. This is a slide where we try to describe a little bit what the Theranostics and the radiopharmaceutical out. Essentially, the product that we're developing made of three components. Targeting molecule we see on the top left, and attached to it is a radioactive isotope. So the three components are the targeting molecule with the high affinity specific to the cancer cell. This can either be a small molecule, peptide, or an antibody. The radioisotope attached to it is what allows to see or treat the cancer cell. And there is a linker in between joining the isotope to the targeting molecule. So what's unique about Theranostics and this application radiopharmaceutical is that to the same molecule is attached a low energy isotope that allows to see and measure the disease with radioactive isotopes, or the isotope can be replaced with a higher energy isotope, and that isotope has got an extreme selectivity to the cancer cell and delivers the energy and hence kills the cancer cell. So this is the principle of what the radiopharmaceuticals or Theranostics is. If we look at some of the applications in Theranostics, there is a lot of cancer types, of course, and I want to focus specifically on prostate. Prostate is a very big need, and not many products have been approved in the US. Prostate has several agents in both imaging and one in therapy, which in diagnostics, there are 3-4 products now being approved. And if you look to the right, the bottom section illustrates the quarterly sales of the aggregate of those products. So we're now talking about, in excess of $200 million of aggregate sales in Q4 2022. And you can see from the trajectory, this is growing very strongly. So the projected revenues of a market of $1 billion or more than that is already kind of happening. On the right-hand side, we're looking at the therapy. So there is one product from Novartis, which has been approved early last year. There are 2 quarters of reported sales. The name of the agent is Pluvicto. As you can see, it doubled. They sold close to 100 million the first quarter of launch, 180 in the second quarter. There have been some slowdowns due to supply chain and manufacturing capacity. The consensus of the analysts and what Novartis has indicated, they're expecting peak revenues about $2.5 billion. So this is a sizable market, and this is prostate. Here we're listing all the tumor types for which there are radiopharmaceuticals in development. The other thing, this is a relatively new industry, but there has been a lot of interest in terms of. On the right, we counted the number of transactions in radiopharmaceuticals. Last year, it was 48. It was less than half, about 18, 6-7 years ago. And there is a growing trend, a growing interest. We've reported on the left some of the most meaningful deals and licensing transactions of Q4 last year, really. So Alpha 9 Theranostics had the Series B oversubscribed. Clovis was acquired by Novartis, $50 million plus development milestone and royalties. I want to point to the last one, Atlantis and Point Biopharma exclusive license agreement. There is a $260 million upfront for the licensing of 2 agents, and then what could be a colossal number just of milestone and royalties. If we move from the industry specifically onto radiopharm theranostics, and these are just a few bullets illustrating. We have a beautiful portfolio, a highly prospective portfolio of radiopharmaceuticals, focusing on both imaging and therapy. We have a novel platform spanning different ways with a broad IP and long patent life, a strong management team. We're going to talk about it in a second. We have a flow of news and milestone in the next 12 months, a good manufacturing supply chain agreement for the key isotope, which is key in our industry, and good commercial and licensing agreement. Some of the milestone, the company was incorporated just about 2 years ago, started in 2021, was in Australia, where the first raise of $20 million. With that, the company started, created a team and board of directors. We licensed in 4 technologies. I'm going to talk about them in a second. And then the year concluded with 2022 was about strengthening the company and really getting that up and running and moving with an expansion of the management team, the board of directors. We licensed 2 more technologies around the summer of last year. We signed a very interesting agreement and we formed a joint venture company with MD Anderson, which has given us access to more assets. In terms of what happened to the product, we read there was a positive publication of a phase 2 study in brain metastasis on PIVALATE, which goes under the name of RAD 101. And far to the right, trabahexin, which is RAD 301. We got an FDA IND approval to start a phase 1 study in pancreatic cancer. And in the meantime, we also raised another 10 million in the fall of last year. This year, we've announced the NASDAQ dual listing, the application for it. We announced that last month. We expect this to go positively through in the next couple of months. And we recently acquired 2 more technologies in preclinical for prostate cancer. Look at the management team, the CEO of the company, Riccardo Canevari. Riccardo comes with very strong oncology experience. He spent 20 parties. His last job was of chief of the radiopharmaceutical branch called THERAPIE, and the officer got extensive field. Professor Mosley is a nuclear medicine physician. He comes from L. He spent time in the industry before. Tom Tulip, a very seasoned industry leader. He's our chief business officer. Paul Hopper is our founder, executive chairman. And then we've got very seasoned leaders running clinical operations. Scott Harper, Dr. Antti Wagner comes from Novartis as well. Insurance clinical development. Rama Schmitz does CMC, B. Reagan clinical regulatory, and director of translational and Levanted Mezzaros, the medical director, Gitasha Chan. Then we've got a few more people in the team. Very strong, experienced team. In terms of the pipeline of the portfolio, we have 6 products/platform we're working on. Starting from the left, we've got 2 in clinical, PIVALATE and trabahexin. I alluded to those earlier, and we've got 4 in preclinical. PIVALATE is a small molecule targeting fatty acid synthetase. It was licensed by Imperial London with an indication in brain metastasis. Trabahexin was licensed to spin-off of the Munich University in Germany. It's a peptide. The target is alpha V beta 6 integrin with an indication in pancreatic. We've got 4 products in NANOMAB, which is a UK company. We have got a single domain monoclonal antibodies with different targets: PD-L1, HER2, TROP2, and PTK7. PD-L1 and HER2 are the most advanced products with targets in lung cancer and breast cancer, respectively, for HER2. PSA-MAB and DAMP19 are 2 monoclonal antibodies. They were licensed by PSA-MAB, from Memorial Sloan Kettering Lund, DAMP19 from UCLA. The PSA product targets KLK3 expression and is a product that is going to be developed for prostate. DAMP19 targets the LRRC15 and is a product for osteosarcoma. And finally, the DAM19 and PTP-mu were licensed after the first four in the summer of 2022. Is a peptide targeting PTP-mu with potential indication for for a variety of brain tumors. So as you can see, a broad portfolio. If you look at what the company is focusing on, what we're working on and will deliver, three priorities for the first half. RAD101 PIVALATE is an imaging agent for brain metastasis. We're going to apply to the FDA in Q2 this year, and we're going to look for an expansion study. 301, the IND has been granted at the end of December last year. The first patient is planned really in a month or two in Q1 2023. And we're also going to go live with our first therapeutic, RAD204, which is one of the nanobody that we licensed. This one looks at the PD-L1. And we're going to run a study in Australia. We're going to apply for ethics committee approval in Q2 2023, and after approval, we're going to enroll patients very fast. I'm going to spend a few minutes on the So PIVALATE is the product candidate is an F18 agent, a PIVALATE target fatty acid synthetase. This is a radiopharmaceutical for the detection, characterization, monitoring of brain metastasis. The relevance, so this is not targeting primary brain tumor metastasis, which are developed in large numbers of patients, unfortunately. About 20 to 40% of cancer patients develop some kind of brain metastasis during the course of illnesses. And the currently available imaging imaging agents have got some limitations due to sugar uptake that are confounding. The study that was conducted in London looked at patients with one or more cerebral metastases for different tumors. And what the trial assessed were the uptake in those metastases, in fact, and we had two cohorts, pre and after treatment. So 11 patients in after treatment. And PIVALATE page showed high uptake regardless of the origin of the primary tumor. So it's an imaging agent. It showed a nice picture, like I say, a very high. What's happening with that? After this encouraging positive results study, we're running an advisory board to get some guidance. So we're conducting some research, and we will go to FDA. With the aim of moving. There are some proof of concept supporting therapeutic development. What I just talked about is the imaging agent only, and so it's still in development and try to finalize, the chemistry, the radiochemistry of the molecule. To look at the size of the opportunity, what this product could be, and we're using as a benchmark for imaging prostate, So in the US alone, there are about 248,000 just under cases of prostate cancer, of which about 170,000 are eligible at the diagnosis. Average price per dose of the agents marketed is just under $5,000, about $4,700. And you come to a revenue opportunity per annum in excess of 800 million. Now, I showed you earlier that, the business size and the total revenues generated last year are already surpassing this number. So, $1 billion is probably what's going to happen in the course of 2023. So if we take that as a benchmark, we look at brain metastasis, there is an even larger number of patients interested in new cases per annum in the US at 300,000. We're doing some quantitative and qualitative research to understand how many are eligible. But then I think the target price per dose that we have in mind is comparable to that of PROSTATE, which is realistic. I think other agents are in that range of numbers. So you can see that we're not venturing in generating numbers on estimates, but the price estimate seems reasonable. There is certainly a large number of patients, a large unmet need. So we believe this can be a real sizable opportunity for our company. Next is the integrin product. University. So this is a product being developed for the condition and monitoring of pancreatic cancer. Here, we're developing the pair of agents. So we're developing an imaging agent labeled with gallium-68, and we will be developing shortly after both isotopes are going to be linked to the trial. We have two clinical studies which have one is in Germany under the German Medical Act, and the trial analyzed the detection of alpha integrin in PDAC patients. More than 60 patients have been administered, mostly with pancreatic cancer, a few with head and neck. And the results were very positive. You can see some pictures. What we've shown is a rapid and specific accumulation in the PDAC, primary lesion and metastasis with low background, and so highly effective images. The second study was conducted in India, and that's an interesting study also because this is a head-to-head study where we compared the images of trivahexin with those of and the trial was a bit of a smaller trial, 17 patients. Same goal, looking at patients. And in all cases, there was a favorable tumor to background contrast of trivahexin compared to FAT and FDG with sharper imaging and really no uptake in the surrounding tissue. So as you can see in the picture at the bottom left, there is a more significant uptake and image expression of trivahexin compared to FDG, which is the most the generic PET agent used in oncology diagnosis. So in terms of next steps on trivahexin, the FDA granted the IND at the very end of the year. The phase 1 study will be a single center study in Q2 2023. We expect a fast enrollment, and given the fact there is a positive in India, we believe that and with the potential of the therapeutic, the final candidate molecule has been selected. We're completing preclinical working, and so we're targeting, early 2024 for the clinical use of the therapeutic agent of trivahexin. In terms of what could be the market opportunity, the number of new cases in the US is just over 60,000. The price per dose is something that we're working on. Prostate, but maybe 2 injections will be needed, so something between 1,000 with the revenue opportunity of lastly, in the third product, which is going to be is the PD-L1 body. This is interesting. So here there is an imaging agent being developed and the therapeutic agent. RADIOPHARM Theranostics has acquired the rights for the agent, for the therapeutic agent labeled with lutetium. The imaging agent is and they're already in phase 2 with the technetium labeled imaging product. So the PD-L1 we know is expressed in about 50% of the non-small cell lung cancer tumors. RAD204 is being developed, will be developed for the treatment of PD-L1 expression in cancer for positive metastatic non-small cell lung cancer.
Vittorio, I'll just jump in there. I think we're just having a bit of trouble with your audio, so I'm just going to share the slide for you and see if that rectifies things. So just bear with me a moment. Okay, please go ahead, Vittorio.
Yeah, just want to say where we are with it. You know, Lantheus is in phase 2 with imaging agent. There is an agreement for data sharing with Lantheus for collaborating on the development. We plan to apply in Q2 this year to start the study in Australia. Next slide, Matt. Okay, same comparison with the prostate benchmark, this time looking at the therapy rather than imaging. So the number of patients is really comparable, about 250,000 or thereabout, you know, new cases per annum. We're assessing the number of eligible patients. This is clearly a blockbuster opportunity. Prostate is going to be in excess of $2 billion. Lung could also be a very sizable big market. Next one. This is a full overview of the pipeline. I talked to you about the top 3 priorities, and then the other products are going to be developed, you know, shortly after. We've got, you know, the HER2 agent for breast and gastric, prostate, the osteosarcoma agents. So all of those, we've got a pretty aggressive timeline, will be in human between the second half of this year and early in 2024. Next. Some inflection points that we're anticipating building the momentum of the company in 2023. Right now, we're working on the phase 1 trial, trial for 301. We're expecting first patient for 301 and for 204, and the FDA feedback on PIVALATE, possibly starting in phase 3. And later in the year, we expect the readout, you know, of 301. We expect, you know, first patients of 2 more agents, you know, 204, 202, and 402, and then starting the phase 3 study for PIVALATE. Next. Getting close to the end. This is a very important initiative that the company undertook last year. It's a joint venture company with MD Anderson. RADIOPHARM Theranostics owns 51%, MD Anderson owns 49%. We bring to the joint venture company management team, regulatory strategy, clinical development. MD Anderson brings, you know, the assets, molecule, and then the R&D, preclinical and manufacturing activities. There is a lead program. It targets B7-H3. It's going to be focused on colorectal cancer. And we've got, you know, 3 more products which have not been disclosed yet, and we're finalizing the IP. But this grants company access to a phenomenal institution like MD Anderson in terms of, you know, preclinical, clinical activity that can be performed here. Next slide. This is the scientific advisory board. We've been fortunate to have the ongoing collaboration of all the inventors of the various assets. And so this is those are the people who really led the early stages of development and invention of the agents, and they're all active contributors and participants to the scientific direction of the company. I think this is what I had, Matt. This is the first slide that we had. So I'm going to pause here, and happy to work with you on any questions.
Great, thank you, Vittorio. We'll jump into a few questions. Once again, if anyone from the floor has any questions, please feel free to type them in using the Q&A panel within Zoom. The first question, Vittorio, there's been a lot of interesting developments in the radiopharmaceutical space recently. Can you just talk more to that, please?
Well, I think that the radiopharmaceutical science has been strong in there for until recently, probably the funding available. And I think, you know, what has from Novartis now a few years ago when they invested in 2 back-to-back acquisitions, spending $6 billion for what has been the development of 2 agents that are now to market. So we think that the potential of the technology is very strong. The clinical outcomes of the agents of the market are indeed very strong, both in imaging and in therapy. And this is giving, positive, I can say, encouragement to the industry. We're, in terms of our portfolio, we think that we got some fantastic asset, and we look forward to being, more in the clinic to develop those.
And on that point of assets, you've obviously got a deep portfolio, Vittorio. How do you decide where to focus your attention across the range of assets?
Well, it's all about prioritization, Matt. So right now we've got 3, which are the priorities, the 3 agents I talked about, and then I think we're progressively going in what we internally call waves. And we look at the combination of, market opportunity, interests of selection and prioritization, and where we are also on the preclinical stage, interests of the development of the, preclinical information that are essential to go in humans. So the first 3 are well defined, and we're going to follow with the HER2 agent for the single domain antibody for breast, the 402, which is the prostate agent, and then most likely with the 600 series, which targets also brain tumors.
And you touched briefly on securing supply of isotopes. Can you just give a bit more detail on that? Because I know that's a key step in the process.
Yeah, isotope supply has always been challenging. I think we're very fortunate that we have signed a variety of agreements for the key isotopes. So for each of these more strategic isotopes, we have 2 agreements in place. So this covers essentially all the therapy isotope that we're working on. I'm going to mention lutetium, actinium. So we think that we're well covered.
Great. Well, thanks for the presentation and for your time today, Vittorio. We'll leave it there. Next up in the conference, we have Anteris Technologies at 9:40 a.m. Eastern Time. But thanks again, Vittorio, for your time today.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks, everyone.